This young man sat there dazed, unable to grasp the current situation. Accidentally, he glanced into a mirror. Wait a minute. The reflection looked both strange and familiar. Damn, this is the face of Win, the character from the novel he just finished writing. Although Win Campbell is just a side character in the Magic Academy, Manhwa times Alen Heroic Legend times, it seems he's really in another world now. The thing is, Win is an extremely detestable character. His magical abilities are mediocre, his vision narrow, and he's annoying. His only talent is abusing his family's power. Thinking of this, the author pushed open the door and stepped outside. In front of him stood the mansion of Count Cambo. Though massive, this family is destined to collapse soon due to their wrongdoings. That's how the original plot goes. But life has given the author a chance to reincarnate in this healthy, intact body. He wants to enjoy it to the fullest. So the author resolved to gradually change the Cambo family's wrongful actions and save those who need saving. But to do that, he must start with the smallest things first. Thinking this, the author immediately felt energized. He changed out of his pajamas. Win lacks magical talent, but it's okay. Since he's the author reincarnation who created this world, all the knowledge is already in his head. I will become the strongest person in this world. The first thing the author did after reincarnating into the body of young Win was to attend the entrance exam at Ziga Magic Academy. Before leaving, this young noble didn't forget to respectfully bow and say goodbye to his father. However, he also had some things to report. About the secret forced labor happening in the underground facilities. He thought it best that his father, Lord Cambo, should put a stop to it. Upon hearing this, his father's expression instantly turned ugly. He didn't know how his usually reckless son found out about these things. Facing his strict father, Win remained firm in every word. Do you really think no one knows about this? If this information leaks, the Campbell family will definitely collapse. Win's father promised to consider the matter. As for Win, his job now was to focus solely on the upcoming exam. The carriage began rolling toward the capital, but Win knew nothing about the exam ahead. However, one thing was certain after arriving in the capital. His life would be completely different from the original story he wrote in his previous life. Suddenly, a massive shock occurred. The entire carriage was thrown into the air, and Win couldn't hide his terror. Damn, just reincarnated and already scaring people half to death. After carefully assessing the situation, he faced a new danger. The explosion was caused by a chained dragon. This creature is a legendary monster. Theoretically, it shouldn't appear here at all. The coachman saw the danger and immediately urged the horses to flee. Truly on the brink of collapse, you can't trust anyone, especially the servants of the nobility. Win's mind went blank because nothing like this happened in the original plot. Before he could react, the chained dragon breathed a huge flame. Win rolled around narrowly, avoiding the attack. No doubt about it, the monster was clearly targeting him. His second life had just begun, so how could he let it end so stupidly? But in the current situation, escaping was. There's only one way to defeat the dragon. That's already tough enough. Even though Win knows its ecology and weaknesses inside out, basically everything about it, yet, he can't use magic at the most desperate moment. Another teenager appears. He brings ice magic, charging fiercely at the red dragon. A fierce clash unfolds. But the dragon's power is overwhelming, making the other teen struggle just as much. I'm here to help you, haha. Win stammers a thank you. Cold sweat pours down his forehead. That face of his, how could you not know? Unexpectedly, his savior this time is Alen, the main character from the original story. Alen's personality hasn't changed at all from the original. Kind-hearted by nature, always ready to fight for justice. But at this moment, his magic hasn't fully awakened yet. Alen is no match for the red dragon, but Wind quietly calculates in his mind. If the two of them team up, the chance of victory is very high. Really, Alen? He asks, half in doubt. Of course it's real. Defeating it is even easier than running away. Wind quickly outlines the strategy with Alen. He'll be the front line holding the monster back, while Alen will use his Ice Phantom skill to attack its wings. Wind knows this big guy's weak spot very well. It has a magic organ called the Fire Dragon Core, right in the center of its chest. Just destroy that. Everything will be over. And even though Wind's magic power is barely 0 right now, his physical attack ability is no less than anyone else's. It's just that in this world, magic is the dominant power. That's why he's seen as trash to OP mage by many. Wind runs fast, slashing twice hard at the red dragon. The dragon roars in pain and spreads its wings wide. This is the moment Alen executes the plan. The Ice Phantom skill quickly launches, targeting its wings. Meanwhile, Wind keeps attacking the dragon's critical point. His sword swings like a gust of wind, continuously slashing the monster's body. That guy's amazing. He can read every move of the red dragon. Alen can't help but exclaim. Everything is going so smoothly that Wind becomes a bit careless. The dragon, overwhelmed by attacks, suddenly enters a rage state, engulfed in fiery wrath. It lashes its tail hard at Wind's body. Although Alen warned him, Wind couldn't dodge in time. The result is severe injury. The situation quickly turns bad. Alen can't just sit still anymore. I have to save him. With this thought, inside Alan's body transformations begin. Blood pours out profusely. Wind feels himself weakening fast. He silently thinks, maybe this is how he dies. But behind him, Alen seems like he took some kind of power-up drug. Then, I won't let you die. His right pupil glows brightly. His whole body is surrounded by a blazing aura created by magic. Don't tell me this kid awakened earlier than in the original story. And awakened to protect others, not for personal gain. Facing the fire-breathing red dragon, his ice magic condenses into a giant ice sword, striking straight at it. This is the absolute void skill. According to the original plot, it would be a long time before he could use this skill. Wind's jaw drops in shock. This development is a bit beyond expectations, but it's not necessarily bad for him. After defeating the red dragon, Alen immediately returns to normal state. He looked at his hands, as if he had just woken up from a dream. He couldn't believe what kind of power he had just unleashed. Turning around, the reinforcements had arrived, but the dragon had already been defeated. Its corpse was dragged onto the cart, and we also boarded with Alen, heading straight to King City. Are your wounds okay? Alen asked, worried, as he saw Wee grimacing. I'm fine, no need to worry. Hearing his new friend's words, Alen relaxed a bit, though he still had a ton of questions. This was the first time I met this guy. Why does he know my name? Faced with this question, Win immediately got flustered. You called my name when we were fighting the red dragon. Why quickly found himself cornered. The situation was too urgent, and he accidentally called out the opponent's name. But luckily, Alen had no childhood memories, so he started improvising, making up a story. When I was little, I lived in a small village in the eastern part of the Celica kingdom, and you look just like my old childhood friend from back then. Alan's eyes lit up immediately upon hearing Win's words. Huh, could it be Tess village? Wait, are you really that Alen? Win stayed fully committed to the fabricated story. I just got back, it could be true, Alen stammered. Because I don't have any memories of my childhood at all. As planned, the cover-up was complete. Win successfully staged an emotional reunion of old friends without making Alen suspicious at all. Not only that, it even helped bring the two closer. Though Alen wasn't a hero yet, he earned a bit of Win's respect. A hero is still a hero, even if he's just a teenager now, but that kind-hearted noble spirit is unmistakable. By the way, could you tell me your name again? Sorry for not remembering it. I'm Win-Win, nice to meet you. He held out his hand to Alen. From now on, let's help each other out. With a handshake, the two instantly became friends. After all, they'd be traveling together for a long time. After some time on the road, the capital of the Celica kingdom, King City, appeared before them. The red dragon's corpse shining on the cart attracted many onlookers. Some even quickly approached to buy it at a hefty price. Alen didn't expect it to be so valuable, but Win knew exactly how high quality a red dragon corpse was, and understood the worth of the 10 silver coins the man had just mentioned. 10 silver coins. Is it okay for me to receive such a large sum? Holding the money bag for the first time with such a big amount, Alen was very flustered. You're the one who defeated the dragon, so of course you can take the reward. But I wasn't the only one who defeated it. If you hadn't helped, it wouldn't have happened. Alen honestly offered to split the money with Win. The Campbell heir certainly wasn't short on cash, but Alan's honesty made it awkward to refuse, so Win gladly accepted 5 silver coins. After receiving the money, Win silently calculated a few things in his head. With this money, he could get closer to what he was longing for. That was the legendary mage's ring. I have to quickly say goodbye to this body that can't use magic. Alen asked Win about his upcoming plans. When he learned, Win didn't intend to take the Magic Academy entrance exam in King City, Alen. There's a hint of disappointment, but Win still has a long journey ahead. He has more important things to do than just take this exam. With Alan's talent, Win had no doubt that he could pass the test, but he also recognized Alan's problem. His magic was powerful, yet Alen struggled to control it in this situation. Win straightforwardly gave him a concise piece of advice. Focus all your magical power into a single point, that's all there is to it. Magic activates by channeling your own magical energy through the magic veins inside your body. Alen might not fully understand this, but how could the author's soul, reincarnated inside Wind, who created this world, not know? That's all I can tell you. Whether you remember it or not, is up to you. It's unclear if Alen fully grasped it, but his eyes lit up brightly, and he hurriedly thanked Wind before leaving. Wind didn't forget to wish him luck on the upcoming exam. Watching Alan's retreating figure, Wind suddenly felt a surge of genuine happiness, truly befitting the protagonist he created. Just as he turned and took 2 steps, a lavish carriage sped past him. Even a glimpse of the figure inside was enough to freeze Wind in place. It was Princess Selena, who was supposed to die in the original story, the one Wind wanted to save in this author reincarnation. But at this moment, he wasn't yet qualified to intervene. She had to become truly strong to be saved from the pen of fate. But seeing her in person made it real. Wind momentarily lost focus. Relying on his knowledge of this world, he made his way to the slums of the capital. This was where the poor lived. A place the capital's authorities ignored, ruled by an organization called Gao. It was also known as a hotbed for crime, drugs, and prostitution. Wind didn't want to set foot in this filthy place either, but he had to cooperate with someone, or else he'd have to hand over his wealth to these thugs and get lost. While he was lost in thought, a few ruffians appeared. "What if I refuse? Then we'll kill you and take everything." "All right then." The leader signaled, and 3 or 4 of them charged at Wind at once. Though he was still a weak character, he had enough power to be accepted into the Magic Academy. So, facing these thugs was no big deal. They were quickly defeated and piled up. The leader couldn't keep up his bravado, apologized profusely, and fled. Wind then headed to a hidden shop on the street. As soon as he stepped inside, the shopkeeper gave a strange smile. "Oh my, a young master from a noble family. This isn't the place for someone like you." In response, Wind flashed a shiny coin. "Money talks. I'm here because I need your help. Not as a gang leader in the slums, but as a client." Upon hearing this, her expression changed. Her name was Nora, an information broker, and the leader of the gangs in the slums. In the original story, Nora would later become someone Alen could rely on. "You need something from me, right? If you can convince me, I'll listen to your request for free." Nora seemed genuinely interested in this strange young man. Of course, she could never know the soul standing before her. "It was the person who created me in this world." We chuckled a few times, then started babbling nonstop. "Her name is Nora, but that's just a fake name. Her real name is Gannett, 180 years old. She left her village because she hated the old customs of the elf tribe. With nowhere else to go, she settled in this capital city slum, pretending to be human and using wind magic to eavesdrop on others, later becoming an information broker." The more Y talked, the uglier Nora's expression became. Her measurements were 33, 23, and 34 inches. How does this lame excuse even know that? Nora lost her composure, threw off her hood, stood up, and shouted in the other's face. "How the hell do you even know that? Is that convincing enough for you?" Y flashed a smug grin, asking back. Nora had no choice but to admit defeat. Not knowing this kid, who fell from the sky, had such a vast information network. So why would he need me anymore? But as I said from the start, Y needed Nora's help as an elf. He wanted her to lead him to her homeland, the elf tribe's forest. Nora drove the carriage to take Y back to her hometown. Along the way, the trees were all withered and dry. Nora couldn't hide her curiosity about why Y wanted to come here, but he stayed silent, acting mysterious, refusing to tell her. They traveled until they reached the wooden gate guarded by elves. The guard shouted for them to stop. "No entry at this hour. This area is controlled by goblins." This was when Y needed Nora to step up. She sighed, jumped off the carriage. "Eric, don't say the forest like that." The guard was both shocked and wary that the newcomer knew his name. "Who are you? How do you know my name?" Y Nora took off her hood. "Because it's me." The guard quickly recognized Nora's identity and stopped blocking them. Y was introduced as her friend, so he was allowed to enter the forest smoothly. When Nora returned, the elf children in the village were overjoyed. This matched what Y knew about her. Nora was the princess of this tribe and beloved by everyone. "So what's your next move now?" Nora, busy holding the children, didn't forget her main mission. Y stopped hiding and asked Nora to take him to the village chief's house. She didn't refuse. The village chief was a short, stooped goblin with a white beard. He showed a strange expression seeing Nora return with a human in tow. He didn't welcome Y at all, even bluntly dismissed him. "Go away. I have no intention of listening to what outsiders say." But what Y said next made him hesitate. "Even if I say I'm here to deal with the strange occurrences happening in the forest recently, would you still stop me like this?" "What did you say?" We successfully caught the village chief's attention and began explaining the issues troubling the elf tribe. The wind spirits in the forest have been growing increasingly aggressive, causing chaos and making the trees wither like what they saw on the way here. The village chief couldn't calm the wind spirits and was considering sacrifice. The more he listened, the more cold sweat he broke out. This kid was reading his thoughts like an open book, so even Nora didn't know about this. When Y spoke, she finally understood why the trees were so dead. Hey, don't tell me you're the culprit, the village chief questioned. You're mistaken, the real culprit is right nearby. I am the messenger of God, sent to save the elf tribe. At first it might sound strange, but Win's soul is actually the creator of this world. Of course he understands the psychology of each character well, so gaining their trust is not too difficult. After a few words, the village chief completely believed the story Wind just made up on the spot. He had no idea that Win's true purpose was to establish a secret contract with the spirit tribe to use their magic covertly. But with my current power, I still can't calm the wrath of the wind spirit. So, could you lend me the spirit tribe's treasures, the spirit mirror, and the fairy drum? Although the village chief was still very cautious, Wind knowing about the spirit tribe's secret treasures made him believe even more that Wind was truly the messenger of God, so he agreed to lend those two treasures, but he also set a condition to send a goblin to accompany Wind as a guard. The one assigned was Han, a beautiful blue-haired, yellow-eyed female goblin. She was also an old acquaintance of Nora. This made Wind pay more attention to her, although by the rules Han was never supposed to appear. But by his feeling, she was also extremely talented. Along the way Han seemed a bit sad. She revealed she was ready to sacrifice herself to quell the wrath of the wind spirit. But Wind quickly dismissed that thought because the wind spirit's rage was caused by leyline disturbances. If the root cause wasn't eliminated directly, even with sacrifices, the wrath could not be extinguished. While the three were still talking, suddenly, a dazzling magical attack struck. "Watch out!" Nora shouted. Wind held the spirit mirror in his hand and blocked the magical blast. This item turned out to be incredibly effective. "Cheer up. With me here we definitely won't fail," Wind smiled. "Leave it to me. There's no greater joy than saving others." The previous attack was from the wind spirit, but their current position didn't quite match. Before he could think further, a massive magical wave surged like a tornado. Nora and Han became extremely panicked, but Wind smiled triumphantly. Lucky that guy dragged himself here. At the center of the storm was the wind spirit Jine. It looked like a gigantic bird. Nora and Han had already been battered by the magic. Unable to observe anything anymore, only Wind remained calm. He took out the spirit mirror again, blocking the chaotic magic wave. But, as soon as he realized his magic was reflected back, the wind spirit quickly switched to physical attacks. Wind frowned. Even in rage, it could make clear decisions. Truly a formidable opponent. He pulled out a 2-finger short dagger from his pocket, placed it on the blade, and sliced it. Immediately, a large flame burst from the dagger. This magical item is called the Fire Magic Short Dagger, a fire magic weapon Wind bought from the black market in the slums. He raised the dagger high, his face full of a triumphant smile. "I will use this to defeat you." The wind spirit, Jane's elemental magic, was powerful in sweeping attacks, but in reality its offensive power wasn't very high. Moreover, Wind's opponent was in a rage, so it was even easier for him to predict every move. As long as he understood Jane's attack patterns and weaknesses, limiting it wouldn't be a big problem. The two faced off directly. On one side was Jane, consumed by peak rage, and on the other was Win, wielding the deadly azure blade. Both were fiercely battle-hardened, but after just a few strikes, Win had completely gained the upper hand. He finally subdued Jane by blinding him with a magical item called the Binding Chain. "Since your weakness is fire magic, I prepared very thoroughly to fight you." Win didn't even turn his head to look at Jane casually, saying this exactly as he had calculated. According to the magic system and Win's strict principles, defeating Jane was impossible. But with the author reincarnation knowledge Win possessed, he could completely turn that impossibility into reality. Knowledge really is power. Nora couldn't help but admire as she watched Jane blinded and tightly bound by the fiery chain. She hadn't expected Win to so easily control a wind spirit like that. Still, something about this guy felt shady. He didn't seem like a true messenger of the divine at all. Han sat on the ground looking utterly pitiful. It seemed this was the first time she had witnessed such a fierce battle, and tears welled up in her eyes early on. "Lord Win, thank you for saving my life." Win pulled out another magical item. He gently shook it as a soothing melody began to play. The wind spirit, previously in a frenzy, suddenly calmed down. "I've calmed down already." Jane's gaze completely changed, becoming much gentler. "Did he just speak?" Nora turned to ask Win. "Yes, Jane just spoke. But the language of spirits can only be understood by beings of a higher existence than themselves." It was natural that Nora didn't understand. Win was different. His soul was the very creator of the spirit language, so how could he not understand it? He moved his lips, beginning to speak that strange language. I am the one who stopped your rage. You understand what I'm saying? Yes, if not for you, I would have destroyed the entire forest in my fury. I am truly grateful. No need to thank me. In exchange for saving you, I want to establish a contract with you. Here came the main topic. Win straightforwardly brought up his desire to use spirit magic. Jane naturally didn't hesitate to agree to the lifesaver's request. All right, what is your name? Win Campbell. After confirming the name, a magic circle was quickly formed. The contract was sealed. The wind spirit Jane entrusted its power to Win. At that moment he felt magic surging through his body. By learning spirit magic, Win could now complete the first step of his plan. Win was that wind spirit magic just now? Nora asked, eyeing the magic flowing from Win's palm. Yes, I learned it while saving the forest. Win lied effortlessly, having gotten used to fabricating stories. Han's admiration for him grew stronger, while Nora was repeatedly shocked by him. Spirit magic was something only the elf clan elders had mastered before. She never thought Win, just by fighting and allying with Jane, could wield it so proficiently. After everything ended, the three returned together to the elf village. The village chief was half in disbelief. Although Win had calmed the wind spirit's rage, the trees in the forest were still withered. Now I will restore the forest to its original state. Right now. The village chief seemed skeptical. Win replied with absolute certainty. He snapped his fingers and summoned the spirit magic of affinity. The village chief seemed skeptical. Win responded with unwavering certainty. He snapped his fingers to summon the wind spirit magic bond, appearing before the elf tribe in everyone's astonishment. After all, this was their first time witnessing the wind spirit king in person, so controlling their emotions was a bit difficult. Jin, make those withered trees in the forest return to their original state. All right. Jin waved his hand and the entire forest burst into radiant light. Everyone collectively marveled at how beautiful the scene was. The withered trees gradually turned lush and green again. The chaotic ley lines causing this issue were also completely resolved. After everything was settled, the wind spirit turned and disappeared. The village chief pointed at Wind, stammering and unable to speak. You are our savior, he shouted, then quickly ordered everyone to organize a lavish feast to honor Wind for saving their entire tribe. That night, the elf village was filled with a joyful and festive atmosphere. The village was splendidly decorated alongside a sumptuous feast. It had been a long time since Han saw her village so full of life. The little girl bowed deeply, sincerely thanking Wind for saving her village. Wind looked at Han for a long time. If he hadn't appeared, this girl would probably have become a sacrificial pawn, remaining just an anonymous character in the original novel. The party has started, so let's forget the sad topics and enjoy ourselves with everyone. That night, Wind had a memorable experience at the elf tribe's cultural feast. Normally they rarely accepted other races, but with Wind they were very generous hosts. Although saving Han gave Wind a sense of accomplishment, what made him even happier was receiving the affection and gratitude from so many people at once. Even though changing such a major event in the original story could cause many deviations, Wind still genuinely looked forward to what might happen in the near future. The next day, Wind and Nora said goodbye to the elf village. He would move on to the next location in his plan, while Nora returned to the capital to continue living as an information provider. The only unexpected thing was Han insisting on following Wind. She felt that without him, she wouldn't even be standing here today. So even if it was just a small contribution, she wanted to bring some benefit to Wind. Am I being too much trouble? She asked shyly. Wind waved his hand to deny it. She might not realize it, but among the elves in the village, Han was a child full of promising potential. Having her accompany him would definitely bring more benefits than harm. The upcoming journey would surely be very different from what was written in the novel, but it would also be something to look forward to. Wind's second goal was much more important, the Wizard's Ring. This sacred artifact was currently buried in ancient ruins on another continent. Wind took Han on a train headed to that continent. She had never left the elf forest before. This was her first time seeing the world, her eyes sparkling like stars. I didn't expect we'd have B-rank adventurers on the ship protecting everyone. While admiring the sea, Wind overheard some people's voices. B-rank adventurers were quite strong, ranking just below S and A ranks, making up the top 10,000 strongest adventurers. Being protected by them seemed to give the merchants on the ship absolute peace of mind. Let's go, Han. Wind led her to the bow of the ship where everyone was rehearsing a performance. That B-rank adventurer, however, wasn't what Wind had imagined. Not sure. While admiring the sea, Wind overheard some people's voices. B-rank adventurers were quite strong. They ranked just below S and A ranks, making up the top 10,000 strongest adventurers. Being protected by them seemed to give the merchants on the ship Absolute peace of mind. Let's go. Wind led Han to the bow of the ship, where everyone was rehearsing a performance. That B-rank adventurer, however, wasn't what Wind had imagined. Not sure. The true power might be questionable, but when it comes to bragging rights, I definitely rank top tier among B-rank adventurers like myself. Those sea monsters over there are nothing to worry about. Suddenly, he noticed Wind among the crowd, whose noble demeanor clearly set him apart from the ordinary folks. Moreover, this guy could tell Wind was an adventurer too. Oh. Hey, you over there want to help protect this ship? I'm just a passenger. Wind shook his head, casually declining. But Wind's attitude rubbed that so-called adventurer the wrong way. He sneered, mocking Wind, by saying that aside from the sword at his side, he looked no different from a weakling. This infuriated Han deeply. How dare he insult her idol so openly? Meanwhile, Wind paid no mind to those words. After all, these adventurers were all built up by Wind himself, each with their own unique personalities. Setting that aside, the ship had already set sail and would take about 5 days to reach the other continent. But not long after departure, Han's condition became very unstable. She was seasick and slumped over the table. Wind gave her some medicine and water to help stabilize her. At the same time, other passengers began whispering about the ship being attacked by monsters and mages fighting them off. Everyone rushed to watch the spectacle as a form of entertainment on the dull journey. Wind wasn't interested. He didn't want to abandon seasick Han, who was barely hanging on down below just to watch the show upstairs. Seasickness isn't fun, right? Let's talk about your talents to distract you from the discomfort. Wind initiated the conversation. My talents, she hesitated, asking back. She had never valued what she possessed. In fact, she always thought she had no skills at all, but Wind showered her with praise for her potential. Although the elf tribe is the birthplace of many prodigies skilled in wind magic, he saw that Han's talent surpassed even theirs. No way, I can't even use magic anymore. Han felt more and more doubtful. Wind continued enlightening her. He said there are 2 reasons why someone can't use magic. One is lacking a magic circuit in the body like Wind himself. No matter how hard you train, you can't use magic. The second is having a magic circuit but simply not knowing how to use it. And according to him, Han definitely falls into this second category. How are you so sure? Thanks to this. Wind held up a golden compass. The compass needle pointed directly at Han. This was another magical item he recently acquired, called the Magic Compass Needle. It always points towards something or someone with strong magical power, even when we're near Garnet. She's a dazzlingly powerful magic wielder from the elf tribe. Yet the compass needle always pointed at her. Wind explained this while encouraging Han that although she couldn't use magic, yet her latent power was immense. Her future was definitely bright. Really, I don't feel strong at all. Han remained skeptical. Then from now on we'll train together so your talents can bloom soon. Wind was extremely patient. Their conversation was interrupted by loud laughter and chatter echoing down. That so-called mage Dominic and 2 others were heading down to the lower deck where Wind and Han sat. It seemed he had successfully subdued the monsters. The 2 guys accompanying him were showering Dominic with endless praise for his talent, which only made Han more annoyed. The more she looked at him, the more she hated him. Who gave him the right to insult Win right in front of her earlier? If she worked hard, she would soon surpass them in magic use. Knowing this, Win kept encouraging Han, helping her start to believe in herself more. If Lord Wind says so, I will do my best. Even on the ship, we can still practice. Once your seasickness eases a bit, we'll start. Yes, sir. It had been 4 days since the ship began its journey. Along the way, the trip went very smoothly. Whenever monsters appeared, Dominic stepped up to fight and defeat them. Although he was reckless, he did have some skill, so Wind turned a blind eye and let him act freely. Meanwhile, he was busy training to awaken the magic inside Han. Although the initial phase was tough, she gradually managed to maintain the magical power within her body. With every bit of progress, Wind praised her without holding back, which boosted Han's spirits even more. I want to improve quickly, so I can be of help to Lord Wind. I'm counting on you. Indeed, Han's progress was getting faster and faster. In this world, only a few have magical abilities comparable to hers. At this rate, if Han returns to Wind later, he'll be like a tiger with wings. Sure enough, even in a world you create yourself, surprises always lurk. One of them being this little elf girl, with extraordinary power that even the author Wind didn't know about. Suddenly, the ship rocked violently. Everyone started shouting, "Sea monster, it's a monster." It was a huge, ferocious black dragon attacking the ship, but the passengers were surprisingly calm because they all believed Dominic could definitely take it down. "Dominic, we're counting on you." Dominic was sweating profusely. This thing was beyond what he could handle. Just by looking at it, you could tell it was a legendary sea monster. He was just a rank B adventurer. The chance of winning was almost 0%. Behind him, the crowd kept cheering and flattering, Dominic as usual, fueling his arrogance. But if he didn't defeat this monster, the ship would sink. At that point, pride wouldn't matter. What mattered was everyone would die. Damn it, I have to risk everything. Dominic raised his staff high and fired a massive lightning bolt straight at the sea monster. The strike hit the dragon's chin precisely, but it didn't faze the creature at all. Instead, the monster provoked became even more aggressive. Dominic hurriedly conjured a shield, but it was completely ineffective. He was immediately knocked down. Only then did those who had been hyping up Dominic's power start to panic. Could it be that even Dominic couldn't defeat this monster? The strongest man on the ship had fallen. Chaos quickly ensued. Dominic sat dazed on the deck, partly because the dragon's blow had drained all his strength. The monster prepared to strike again, but Dominic no longer had the strength to defend or flee. Jin, save him. Wind silently ordered the Wind Spirit King immediately. Jin appeared, blocking the sea monster's attack and saving Dominic's life. The sea monster was truly something that an adventurer, blocking the attack of the sea monster, saving his life. Sea monsters are exactly the kind of threat an adventurer, B-rank adventurer like you, won't stand a chance. Are you that passenger who looks like an adventurer? Dominic, now you better not underestimate Win anymore. After all, you just saved his life. Even if you only look like an adventurer, I really do have fighting skills. Now step back and let me handle this. Hearing this, Dominic's soul practically soared to the sky. Now he no longer had the strength to look down on anyone. But this danger really didn't seem like someone who could defeat the famed sea monster B rank. If he kept being reckless, he worried this young man might lose his life too. But Dominic didn't have time to say more, because Win didn't even acknowledge him. Watch how I fight and try to develop your own fighting style, okay? Understood. Han clenched both fists, his eyes shining brightly as he stood to the side, waiting. Now's the time to shout, "Oh, oh, oh," loud and proud. On one side was the famed sea monster, on the other, the Wind Spirit King, and a teenager whose brain was packed with knowledge about this world. Looks like this still isn't an evenly matched battle, but that dragon wasn't to be underestimated either. It kept attacking the ship, making it rock dangerously. Win immediately realized the sea monster's plan was to drag the whole ship underwater. That would give it a huge advantage in this fight. Jin, fly up and let me ride on your back. To prevent the entire ship from being destroyed, Win and Jin first distanced themselves from the area. Just as expected, the sea monster was drawn to them and temporarily stopped its attack. Win sat on Jin's back, continuously firing wind spirit bullets into the sea. The dragon, hit by the bullets, angrily shot out of the water. From this angle, its size was clear. The difference between the two was huge, but strength wasn't guaranteed. The dragon used the same move it used to knock Dominic down. It opened its mouth wide and unleashed a massive magic blast. Win ordered Jin to create a shield to block it. Although the shield succeeded, the wind magic barrier on the ship cracked badly. Dominic was left gaping as he watched Win face off against the damn sea monster. Once dismissive, he now clearly saw that Win and he were on completely different levels. Han, as always, couldn't hide his admiration for Win, but up in the air, Win and Jin were facing a big problem. Jin had exhausted too much magic. If they kept fighting like this, even the Wind Spirit King couldn't hold on much longer. To finish quickly, they had to hit the dragon's weak spot, like when they faced Alen before. But right now, doing that was too risky, yet not doing it left no other options. They had to take the gamble. I'm a B-rank adventurer. I can deal damage to that dragon. Win saw Dominic raise his staff again, but before he could stop him, Dominic fired a massive lightning bolt at the sea monster. Foolish enthusiasm causing destruction. The dragon took the furious hit, dove underwater, and swam toward the ship. This is a headache. Now the sea monster was redirecting its attack toward the ship. Oh, what's this? It's scared and running away. This dumbass still didn't realize the mistake he made and laughed loudly, thinking he'd just scored a major win. Win gave him a contemptuous look. Truly hopeless. In this urgent situation, Win came up with a plan. Jin, the moment I shout, you have to immediately pull the ship straight here. Got it. As the dragon shot out of the water, Win shouted loudly. Go, Jin. Jin instantly used his magic to pull the ship, making it glide like flying over the magical currents on the water. The giant lifted the entire large ship high into the air. The dragon was gathering all its strength to ram into the ship, but suddenly, the ship vanished in the middle of the sea, catching it off guard. Just as I thought, once out of the water attack, and the weak spot will be easy to hit. Wind concentrated magic in his hand. The magic shot like a sharp arrow, straight into the dragon core behind the sea monster's back. It let out a piercing cry of pain and then fell into the water before disappearing without a trace. The ship was also brought back to the surface by Zin. All the passengers and adventurers on board clasped their hands in thanks to Win. You truly are the savior, and we owe our safety today to you. It was definitely a tense situation. Honestly, if I were still in my previous life, rewriting the story from such a critical moment would be pretty cool. One day later, the ship docked. Wind arrived at the Ulis continent. It was indeed a long and exhausting journey. The merchants traveling on the same ship still wouldn't let him off the hook. They noticed Wind was an outstanding adventurer and fought fiercely over recruiting him to protect their businesses. Wind turned toward the voice calling him Dominic. His expression was extremely unpleasant, a mix of embarrassment and a hint of reverence. Sorry for speaking disrespectfully to you the first time we met. Please forgive me for thinking you were inferior. Wind still wanted to act proud, but it seemed Dominic truly realized his mistake. Moreover, he recognized his flaw of being overly confident. So in the end, the two shook hands sincerely. All grudges were erased after leaving the port. Wind led Han to the item shop. They needed to buy some essentials for their adventure on this new continent. But after walking for a while, Wind stopped in front of a shabby shop at the forest edge. Han was very curious. There were many more upscale places along the way, so why did Wind choose this one? The shopkeeper was a bald man with a rather rough face. As soon as Wind stepped in, he spoke up. I've never seen you before. Who the hell are you? This is my first time here. The shopkeeper silently assessed Wind. Then he picked up a spilled bottle of liquor on the table and continued gulping it down. Definitely a special guy. Take whatever you want and bring it here to pay. But Wind walked straight up to him, then calmly stated his request. What I want is your skill. A wizard's skill. The bald man's eyes suddenly turned very cold. He uttered a sentence many have said to Wind after his reincarnation into this world. How do you know someone I know really admires you? And I want you to make me a bag to hold items. Of course, that acquaintance was someone Wind knew. He made up the story, but the need for an item bag was definitely real. This is also a type of magical item, small in size, but able to hold more items than usual. Simply put, it's like Doja Iman's magic bag. It's essential for your upcoming adventure. And the man before them was not just a shopkeeper. His name was Tanto, a wizard with proficient skills. Long ago, many adventurers came here to ask him to enchant their armor. But because Tanto's friend disliked him, he chose to abandon that path and became an ordinary item merchant. At Wind's request, Tanto bluntly refused. Wind had anticipated this situation, so he didn't force him. Then lend me the crafting materials. Alright, charge 1 gold coin. Tanto was joking. 1 gold coin is no small amount, but he didn't expect. Wind, feeling refreshed, pulled out a gold coin and tossed it to me, saying, Don't tell me you're planning to craft your own item bag. Wind didn't deny the question, which made Tanto even more amazed. To create a quality bag, even he had to train for years. This young guy with such a fresh face obviously has no experience crafting bags, so how could he claim to make one himself? I know that, but I can still make one like this. Tanto was speechless, unsure if the young man before him was foolish or arrogant. After a hearty laugh, he declared, if Wind succeeds in crafting the bag, he would give him another item for free, but if he failed, that gold coin was as good as gone. Wind remained calm and silent. Then follow me. Tanto led Wind and Han into another room filled with magical tools for crafting item bags. He wouldn't explain even a single word on how to use them, but Wind didn't need it. After all, this world was created by me. What the hell do I need instructions for? He began the crafting process. In just a short time, a basic item bag was formed. Tanto couldn't believe his eyes. He picked up the bag, examining it carefully, unable to believe this was a genuine, perfectly crafted item. Who the hell are you? Tanto couldn't hide his suspicion. Me, just a traveler with vast knowledge. Even after Wind and Han left, Tanto remained stunned in this world. There aren't many who can create item bags. So, who exactly is that young man? As for Wind, after obtaining the item bag, he prepared to buy the necessary supplies for his journey. Han was happier than ever upon hearing they were going to the market. This was understandable since elves usually spend their whole lives in their hometowns. With little exposure and knowledge of the outside world, everything was new to Han. Seeing her excited, Wind felt a warm joy inside. The two arrived at the bustling market. With the elf's superior vision compared to humans, Han was quite tense. Wind told her not to focus on every face. Han tried to follow, but ended up not watching where she was going and fell flat on her face. Raising a daughter, huh? They wandered the market until late afternoon and Wind found everything he needed. The next day, he went to a farm to buy a good horse. Wind placed Han on his back, then urged the horse to run at top speed. Cover your body with a small amount of mana and maintain it. This is a special exercise to help you control your mana. And be careful not to fall off the horse. Han was seasick and scared of high speeds, but after a short time, she fully controlled her mana with high precision. So Han could leisurely enjoy the scenery along the road, even though Wind was riding fast. Wind was proud to see how quickly she improved. Although he had said it many times, Han's appearance still surprised the author. The original world of this Magic Academy manhwa became more realistic, with many unpredictable elements. It was even more realistic than the author expected. It's you. They ran until nightfall and then stopped. Wind used the tools he bought yesterday to set up a tent and cook dinner. There might be monsters, so let's take turns staying awake to keep watch. After a full meal, Wind instructed Han. She was a bit hesitant since she had never directly faced monsters before. But Wind reassured her, no need to stress. If monsters show up, just use magic to fight them off, since Han's abilities have improved a lot by now. Even so, Wind let Han go to sleep first. After all, this was the first time the little girl had traveled so far, and she had already put in a lot of effort training her magic, so she couldn't be kept up late guarding against monsters anymore. Around midnight, Wind suddenly heard very light footsteps. What was that? Was it the monsters? But they weren't human, just a bunch of dirty-faced, glaring creatures. Just by looking at them, you could tell they weren't good people. Sure enough, the first thing they said was a threat to Wind. Hand over all your valuables, or you'll lose your life. With that typical trash to OP mage hero aura, Wind wasn't fazed by such threats. Even when outnumbered and overpowered, he didn't back down at all. He immediately summoned the Spirit King Jin. After the last battle with the sea monster, Jin had rested long enough, so his strength was fully restored. As soon as Jin appeared, he radiated an immense, intimidating presence. The bandits were scared before the fight even started, quickly apologized, and ran off. They ran just from a scare like that. Wind exhaled deeply. Suddenly his body ached sharply. The pain so intense that Wind dropped to his knees. Jin warned him, this pain is from overusing spirit magic in a short time. If you keep going, your organs will gradually be damaged. I know, Wind said, clutching his chest with difficulty. Then we have to speed things up and get to the next location. The next day, Wind took Han to a forest. The trees here looked very strange. Moreover, the insects in the forest were terrifyingly huge. Seeing a giant dragonfly almost made her scream out loud. Wind quickly covered her mouth. The monsters in this forest are strong, so avoid making noise to not attract them. The two continued walking. They were almost at their destination. They were deep in the forest. The hot and humid climate created a rich ecosystem here, so there were many monsters mostly ranked B. However, the heat and humidity made Han very tired. Seeing her getting worse, Wind suggested, let's rest a bit. There are some fruit trees along the way with plenty of fruit. Wind reached out and picked 2 fruits, handing them to Han to try. As soon as she bit into the first one, her energy surged. So delicious and sweet. This is a pama fruit full of water and nutrients. Eating it helps restore energy when you're tired. That simple explanation made Wind even more impressive in Han's eyes. To her, this guy seemed to know everything in the world, unlike her, who had only lived in the elf forest and found everything strange. Still, Han always felt lucky to have met Wind. Without him, she would never have had such new experiences. After finishing a pama fruit and regaining strength, Wind began explaining the place they were about to visit. The place we're heading to is an ancient ruin located west of this forest. Ancient ruins are architectural structures with no recorded documents. They are remnants from what's called the Lost Era. Ancient ruins appear in many places around the world, but since they're all in remote areas, only a few people know about their existence. During the Lost Era, a great magical civilization once flourished. Though that era has declined, powerful magical artifacts still remain. One of them is the Witch's Ring, but the powerful magical items were still preserved. One of them was the Witch's Ring. The two of them walked and rested for several days before finally reaching the ancient ruins hidden behind a massive waterfall. This was also the reason why Wind came to the forest. He made a contract with Jane. I will summon Jane so he can fly us over after we pass the waterfall. Han, use your wind magic to create a shield to block the water from hitting us. Han was extremely worried. The mission Wind mentioned seemed too much for her, yet despite that, Wind kept silently comforting her and affirming that she was capable of accomplishing it. This was also a good opportunity for Han to test her magical abilities. After a whole week of hard training, she had become much more confident. Thanks Han, you're truly a great companion. Wind summoned Zhen, as planned when they approached the waterfall. Wind gave a signal. Han immediately used all her power to create a wind wall against the terrifying water pressure. But she still gave her best effort, and in the end, the three of them successfully crossed the majestic waterfall without a single scratch. Well done, Han. Wind praised her. Finally, they had truly arrived. The ancient ruins appeared right before their eyes. Jinda, Wind, and Han flew straight into the ancient ruins. They stopped in front of a large door. Be careful. From here on, I can't go any further. Duyen left a reminder and then vanished into the blue wind. Han stared suspiciously at the door. It seemed to be sealed by an enormous source of energy. Wind just gave a confirming which only made Han more anxious. They had traveled such a long way. Don't tell me we can't get in after coming all this way. But for Wind, this seal was nothing compared to the scholars in this world. It would take at least a year to analyze and break the seal, because their knowledge of ancient magic was extremely limited. But Wind was different. His soul was the one who created everything in this world. So within a minute, the heavy door slowly opened under Wind's influence. When it fully opened, Han's eyes were filled with reverence. At this moment, Wind had probably already been deified in her eyes. Let's go, Han. His heart followed the call from inside the door. It was still just ruins, with nothing special, but this place used to be a dungeon, with a labyrinth-like architecture. However, the entire map of the area was already in Wind's mind, so he was very relaxed. Taking it slow, with very few detours, Han followed the easiest path. This place is huge. Yeah, if you get lost, you might never get out. Han's childish nature showed. After Wind's few warnings, she immediately stuck close to him. After walking for a while, they finally reached their destination. The witch's ring was right in front of them. But if we can't defeat this thing, we can't move forward. Wind looked at what was opposite them with frustration. The heavy stone in front of them slowly moved and transformed into a bush bear. This creature would automatically attack when it detected intruders. It wasn't going down easily. Their only choice was to defeat it. Wind already knew how to take it down. There was a magical inscription on the bear's chest. They just needed to erase one of the characters to destroy it. But figuring out how to get close enough to erase the character on its chest was the real challenge. We have to fight it head-on to make it stagger and move. Only then can we erase the character. Knowing that, but Wind's mana was depleted from the residual effects of summoning Jane earlier. In his current state, using spirit magic was impossible. So I had to rely on the cave to fight that giant bear. Yeah, Han didn't think twice and immediately agreed with full enthusiasm. Though her reflexes seemed a bit slow. It took quite a while before Han caught on. What did Win just say? Wait, what? How did I defeat Win? Judging by Han's panicked look, Ni smiled and reassured Han by proposing a plan. Win would be the one to draw the giant bear's attention from the front. Meanwhile, Han just needed to focus all her strength to attack it from behind. Although still scared, Han didn't want to hold Win back, so she agreed to give it a try. You have to admit, since that successful waterfall crossing, Han had become much braver. Alright, let's go. The two faced the furious giant bear. Win showed no fear. However, the opponent's speed was faster than he had imagined. Win struggled to dodge the bear's deadly attacks, while Han circled around to its back. Following Win's signal, she immediately unleashed her magic, aiming a strike straight at the monster's back. But the first attack wasn't enough to stun this massive beast. Han then poured all her magic power into a dazzling non-spell magic attack, channeling a huge energy surge that slowed the giant bear down significantly. Good job, man. Now it's Win's turn. You can't waste the opportunity she just created for you. Seizing the perfect moment Han created, Win unleashed a devastating burst attack. It immediately knocked the giant bear down. Win was exhausted, but still managed to jump onto its chest, using a sword strike to erase a letter from the magical inscription on it. That officially defeated the creature. Did we really beat it? Yes. Thanks to you, Han, I was able to take it down. Encouraged by Win's praise, Han felt very happy and gradually gained more confidence in her own abilities. The task of defeating the guardian bear was complete. The witch's ring lay right ahead. Win led Han forward toward the glowing object. Then he carefully took out the item contained within. A slight smirk appeared on Win's lips. This feeling of satisfaction was hard to hide. After all, he had completed the crucial preparations for the most important event in the original story. Now that he had this in hand, using magic was no longer an obstacle for Win. But hadn't Win always used magic before? Han wondered. That was just spirit magic, Win explained patiently. I still can't use regular magic. Even though I have magical power, I lack the ability to wield it. Now with this ring, I can. Han was surprised she had thought Win was strong before, but didn't realize he only recently gained the ability to use magic. So, you're saying you'll become even more powerful later. Exactly, this is just the beginning. Han, you have to become stronger too. The ring was now in hand. Han suddenly realized another serious problem. How would they get back out? Win no longer had the strength to summon Jane, but on the other hand, he was very confident. He insisted that just the two of them could cross the waterfall again, and indeed they managed to get out on their own. When they reached the other side, Han couldn't believe her eyes because it had taken so much effort going in. But times had changed. Win could now use magic personally, thanks to the witch's ring, marking a turning point in their journey in this trash to OP Mage Magic Academy Manhwa world. So helping Han cross the waterfall was an incredibly easy task for him. Who are you guys? A strange voice suddenly rang out, making Han turn pale with fear. The girl quickly hid behind Win's back. A mysterious mage holding a staff appeared before the two of them. What are you doing here? Win stared intently at the necklace the stranger was wearing. If he wasn't mistaken, that guy belonged to LX Mana. It's an evil mage organization formed with the goal of conquering the world. Although they aren't widely known, their membership is countless. In the future, LX Mana will grow so powerful that all nations will consider it an enemy. This organization is also the #1 rival to the hero Alen's group in the original story that Wind is building. How do you know about our organization? The other seemed panicked, but Wind didn't recognize him, probably just some nameless lackey. Are you searching for ancient relics? Wind asked him back. LX Mana is paying close attention to the power of ancient magical artifacts, so it's no surprise their people show up here. Suddenly, the masked mage raised his staff. But since you already know all this, I can't let you live any longer. If that guy knew Win's true identity, he'd probably laugh at how ridiculous that statement was. Come here, you insignificant fool. You'll be the first to be trained in magic by me. The stranger was furious to hear Wind call him insignificant fool. He swung his staff fiercely, radiating a fierce aura while not forgetting to throw out some threats. Don't get cocky. Rookie mage. I'll make you regret underestimating your opponent. Wind told Han to step back. The girl obediently complied. Immediately after, the strange mage launched his first attack. His power was no joke. Han's face instantly changed color, but Wind wasn't afraid. In the original story, he was a character with decent physical strength. But because he couldn't use magic, he was listed among the weaklings. Now things were different. The witch's ring was in his possession. Hey, what could possibly hurt me? Wind swung his sword confidently. Water magic surged along, with the blade instantly nullifying the opponent's strike. His eyes were full of pride. After finding the witch's ring, Wind's abilities had been fully unlocked, both physical and magical power. That kind of growth was absolutely OP. The LX Mana mage was shocked to see Wind nullify his attack with just a sword. He didn't even move from his spot. Anyway, I'm just an apprentice mage. Choosing a lowly lackey like you as my training partner is perfect. Wind's relentless mouth only made the other angrier. He'd never met such an arrogant punk before, so he decided to unleash an even more annoying attack. The ground beneath Wind rumbled loudly because the guy wielded earth magic, so he easily controlled the earth like iron bars, turning it into a prison surrounding Wind. Don't think you can break these, huh? The guy sneered, then raised the stakes by transforming the prison's nature. This was magic that altered the essence of things. He was confident that with Win's abilities breaking this was impossible. That really exceeded expectations. Win. He clicked his tongue, raising the magic sword in his hand. If the opponent was already giving it their all, then he would have to use even more magical power to make him see reason right. The sword in Win's hand swung up, radiating a blinding light. The iron bars in front of him instantly shattered. What the hell? The guy shouted. He couldn't believe what had just happened right before his eyes. The bars were supposed to be incredibly sturdy, yet this brat shattered them in the blink of an eye. But he hadn't given up hope on Windy the Salt Cellar yet. After 2 failures, he once again raised the staff in his hand. Alright, if you want to die that badly, then I'll have to kill you myself. The staff was lifted high into the air. Wind also gripped his sword tightly. He closed his eyes, and the sharpness of his other senses immediately heightened. It seemed the opponent was going all out, so Wind wanted to use his instincts to sense attacks from every direction. But after a while, he didn't feel any magical fluctuations in the air. Lord Wind. Han's voice pulled Win out of his heightened alertness. He opened his eyes, and there was no one around except Han. That guy had already run off. Han pointed toward the edge of the green bean forest. Wind didn't know what to say in this situation. It turned out that guy had put on that flashy act just to distract him, then escaped. Meanwhile, Han and that stranger were both running for their lives in the forest. After just 2 moves, he realized he wasn't a match for this teenager, so among the 36 seats, running away was the best option. Win had no intention of chasing him down. After all, the opponent's power wasn't enough for a final showdown, and he'd just run off anyway. He was just an ordinary subordinate, not worth Win's effort to pursue. Awesome, we're safe and sound now. Han still didn't realize the huge gap in the fight just now, so she thought the opponent running away was a lucky break. Wind chuckled, although he still wanted to practice a bit more. Once someone's run off, there's nothing you can do. Let's head home, this matter's settled. Returning to the city wasn't unusual, but after a few steps, Win noticed Han standing still. The girl shyly pointed in the opposite direction. But isn't our way home this way? Really? Win. Tilting his head, Han nodded repeatedly. Wind patted her head a few times, not forgetting to say some encouraging words. Maybe because she grew up in the elf forest, Han's sense of direction in terrain like this was pretty good. But Win wasn't mistaken either, because he knew that in the Lost Era, there were things created for traveling that no longer existed today. Namely, the fast teleportation setup that could save them a lot of travel time. Han was still wondering what Win was up to when they quickly faced a new disaster. A giant, flashy-bodied spider busy spinning silk. Actually, this was only Han's disaster, because as soon as they faced off, the spider immediately shot out a web strand. Win quickly dodged. But Han wasn't as agile. She was instantly trapped by the sticky webbing on a nearby tree. This stuff was super sticky and gross. So even though Wind comforted her that it wasn't poisonous, Han still felt disgusted to death. Alright, let me take it down. The appearance of a giant spider here was definitely strange, but Wind didn't have time to think much, because right after he was busy erecting a wall of fire to block the monster's first attack. After that, Wind used the speed of the altar to close in on the monster, but instead of attacking it head-on, he jumped really high. While the opponent was still disoriented, Wind used fire magic to create a massive flame that rained down from above. And so, we ended up with a dish that looked horribly burnt on the edges. Surely no one would want to eat that. Wind landed lightly on the ground. He was extremely satisfied with the power the wizard's ring granted him. As for Han, no need to mention. She quickly forgot the discomfort caused by the spider silk blinding her eyes. Seeing Wind defeat the giant monster in a flash, her admiration for him skyrocketed dizzyingly. Wind removed the glare from Han's eyes, then led her to another small, ruined relic. This was the transportation device he had thought of earlier. It's commonly called the teleportation shrine. The mechanism at the center of the shrine allows the user to teleport to different coordinates. Han heard about this miracle for the first time, her eyes wide open as she kept marveling. That's amazing, it's really convenient. Wind nodded, because discovering teleportation shrines like this also meant they could cross continents in the blink of an eye. Wah, so we don't have to go back the old way anymore. Then why didn't we use the teleportation shrine when we first arrived here? Han was just a curious kid, hitting Wind's weak spot exactly. When they came here because he was useless, they had to travel by boat. After all, activating the teleportation shrine requires magic. After pouring magic into the central mechanism of the shrine, it immediately emitted a dazzling light. Wind precisely selected the coordinates they needed. That was the teleportation shrine closest to the capital of the Kingdom of Selig. This time, returning to the capital, Wind was in a new position, both the original author and the main character of the story. Now he could intervene in the plot. So Wind was determined to steer the story in the best possible direction. Thanks to the teleportation shrine, the two didn't waste much time returning to the Kingdom of Selig's capital. So we arrived just in time. Han didn't understand what Wind meant by just in time, but soon after, Wind began to explain many monsters would soon attack the kingdom, causing such severe damage to the capital that it would nearly collapse. The severity also depended on the king's betrayal. Han became even more panicked upon hearing this. She never thought such a thing could happen. Of course it can, but I won't let it happen, Wind stated firmly. After all, this return to the capital was precisely to prevent that, because once the king's betrayal plan is set in motion, Princess Selena must sacrifice herself, and Selena is one of the characters Wind wants to save the most. After reincarnating in this world, he absolutely must save her at all costs. Hey, you there, stop. Yes, what's the matter, stranger? As soon as he spoke and saw Wind's face clearly, he smiled with satisfaction. But when Wind searched his memory, he had no impression of this guy at all. Who are you? I'm the one the Campbell family hired to find you and bring you home. Wind immediately understood the situation. His refusal to participate in the Magic Academy entrance exam and his rogue actions outside had reached his father. So it was understandable that his father hired someone to drag him back. Surrender because I won't harm you. Although Win knew the man had no hostile intent, he certainly wouldn't comply obediently. Reluctant to return home, then I'll have to force you. Even with the witch's ring in hand, Win wasn't necessarily going to lose to that guy. But fighting in the middle of the street is too troublesome, so Win's mind quickly came up with a plan. He grabbed Han's hand and bolted. The other guy chased closely behind. In his eyes, the Campbell clan heir was just someone who couldn't use magic, so he thought catching Win would be a piece of cake, but the young Win ran like the wind. With both arms holding Han tightly, he used magic to leap onto a rooftop, leaving his pursuer stunned. There's no way Win Campbell could use magic. That's old news, DM. Now I can use it. Immediately, the other guy jumped up to chase them. Win still refused to fight, avoiding crowds, so he carried Han on his back and ran. Behind them, the pursuer launched an attack. But his fireball was gently blocked by Han's wind wall magic. Looks like the Campbell family had seriously underestimated his son, so he only hired a low-level mage to capture him. While the pursuer was still dumbfounded seeing a little girl block his attack, Win accelerated. He used magic to glide swiftly, his body feeling light as air. Even carrying Han, Win moved gracefully across rooftops, quickly leaving the pursuer far behind. That was high-level magic, leaving the hired mage speechless. How could the useless Campbell heir use high-level magic? Clearly he's just a worthless kid. The two quickly lost their tail. Win set Han down. She was still dizzy from the rapid movement, even worse than seasickness before. As for Win, he was deeply troubled about the path ahead. Surely his father would hire more mages to hunt him down. Though defeating them was easy, he didn't want to draw attention. He'd need to stay hidden more carefully from now on. There was also another issue tied to the protagonist's awakening in this story. In the original story, after Princess Selena left, Alen, as a close friend of the princess, couldn't bear the shock and awakened his powers, yet he wanted to save the princess. This inadvertently hindered Alen from fully unlocking his power. But Win wanted to have it both ways, save her, and help the protagonist awaken. It's a real headache. Lord Win. What are you thinking? Nothing at all. Han was, after all, just a little girl. Sharing his worries would only give her a headache, not help. For now, he needed to enter the Magic Academy first. Only then could he meet Alen again. But the opportunity came sooner than expected. Coincidentally, Alen was strolling through town and ran into Win. He was moved to tears. They greeted each other warmly after being apart so long. Alen had always worried Win would leave the continent forever. Unexpectedly, they still had the chance to meet like this. I just got back. It's because I wanted to see you again. Alen, is that me? Yes. I have something important to tell you. First, can we find somewhere quieter to talk? Alen took Win and Han back to his private room in the Magic Academy dormitory. It was quiet here, and there was no worry about anyone eavesdropping, so it was very suitable. So what's the important thing you want to say now? Win didn't beat around the bush, and went straight to the point. It seems like Alen has grown closer to Princess Selena during the recent duel held at the Magic Academy, right? Alen was quite surprised that Wind just back had already gathered so much information. But he wasn't too shocked, because Wind was always mysterious, knowing a lot of intel. He even knew about the future of this kingdom. Alen. Wind took a sip of tea, then calmly continued, this kingdom will soon face a war triggered by monsters. This place will suffer such heavy damage, it will nearly collapse. At this point, Alen could no longer stay calm. The grim scenario Wind painted was truly hard to accept, making him jump to his feet. On the other hand, Wind remained incredibly composed, though hard to believe it was the truth. Moreover, Princess Selena, Alen's close friend, would be killed during that time. The atmosphere fell silent. The more Alen heard, the more terrified he became. How could that happen? You really trust me that much? Why don't you think I'm lying, Alen? Because lying wouldn't benefit me at all. Alen answered honestly, and the danger you just told me about is way more important. Wind looked at Alen with the gentle eyes of an old father. Looking at the young boy, he was truly the perfect character he had created. Alen was too pure and kind, fitting perfectly the role of a hero, facing the info Wind just shared. Alen had only one concern, what they should do next to prevent that tragedy from happening. I'll be clear. We can avoid that future if you trust me and we walk this path together. Wind stood up and patted Alen's shoulder a few times. Alen, do you want to join me? That was a question with no other answer for Alen's personality. Of course, he immediately agreed, I'll do everything I can. Another bond called teammates was formed between these two teenagers. They sat side by side, drinking tea. Even the onlookers thought these two were seriously cool. Wind had successfully passed the first barrier. Now the biggest headache was the second barrier, Alen's awakening. You say we'll work together, but what should I do now? First, can you hide me here? Alen didn't expect Wind's first request to be this. Wind honestly shared that he was a noble's son, being hunted by his own clan. Many mages were lurking around with the same goal, to capture him and deliver him to Lord Campbell. Luckily, the academy dormitory was a perfect place to hide. This made Alen very curious. But why is your clan chasing you? Because I chose to adventure on my own journey. instead of taking the entrance exam for Celica Magic Academy. After all, questions were answered. Alen generously agreed to let Wind share his room. He also announced their plan would start tonight. What should I do? Simple. When the time comes, I'll tell you myself. Night fell quickly. In the Magic Academy's arena appeared two familiar figures, none other than Wind and Alen. Wait, can we just use the arena without permission? But unlike Alan's anxious look, Wind was extremely calm, like he was used to doing shady stuff. He explained that the Academy's security would be relaxed at night, so Alen didn't have to worry about being caught. Wind also casually. He created a barrier covering the entire arena. Any movements inside won't be seen or heard by outsiders. They can feel even more at ease inside here. This is awesome, so you can already use magic of this scale. Alen expressed absolute admiration for his friend. Alright, let's get started. Get started with what Alen still didn't quite understand. Once you're in the arena, there's only one purpose. To fight each other. Why? To make you stronger. You're still weak right now. That's why I came here to help you train. Alen felt a bit embarrassed when Win criticized his weakness. But you ranked first in the recent magic tournament. When Alen said this, Win was momentarily stunned. In the original story, Alen only made it to the top 8 in that tournament. So why is he the winner now? Of course, that's because of your advice, focusing all power on one point, since realizing that I've been able to control my magic much better. I see. Win let out a sigh of relief. Looks like the plot has started to change. The changes are there, but Alen is still within your control, so nothing to worry about yet. However, even though he's gotten stronger, it's still not enough. In the future, Win definitely has to partner with one of the strongest people, and Alen. But right now, he hasn't reached that important milestone, so training is mandatory. He waved his hand. Fire magic lit up the entire arena in an instant. Now let's begin. Win originally wanted to let Alen attack first, but the opponent wanted to see his moves, so he actively gave up the first strike. Win had no reservations either. After all, it's training to improve together, so he launched a decisive strike. The speed made Alan's eyes widen in surprise, even though he always knew Win wasn't ordinary. But the brutal move he just unleashed was too fast. If Alen didn't dodge in time, it would have hit a vital spot. Alen flipped away in a split second like a pro. Win smiled. Just as he expected, Alen dodged successfully. This young man is compatible with all types of magic. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth elements because he has a unique genetic makeup. He tends to choose magic with advantageous attributes. But what Win just used was light magic. Light and dark magic have huge differences compared to the other elements. So, in this situation, Alen had no other choice but to carefully assess the situation. Win struck continuously while Alen struggled to dodge. He didn't know the attribute that Win possessed, so he could only dodge attacks while trying to imagine the attribute being used. After a while of rolling around, Alan's right hand gathered a beam of light. It's time to counterattack. The move Alen used to strike back was a killing blow. Although he couldn't land it yet, it startled Win for a moment, because this technique was light magic. Given the plot's pace, Alen shouldn't be able to use this magic yet. Could he be developing faster than Win expected? Not done yet. Alen drew his sword and sprinted toward Win. Damn it, training magic for someone else's son and losing is just embarrassing beyond words. As Alen closed in, sword ready to strike, Win's eyes suddenly flared with light as well. Of course. After all, after transmigrating, this story switched protagonists. It makes sense that Win is stronger than Alen at this point. That's right. After all, since the transmigration into the novel, the story's protagonist has changed. It makes sense that Win is stronger than Alen now. The current situation is undeniable. Water sword is gentle, but water magic is anything but easy to handle. Alen was knocked flat on the ground by Win's slash. The sword in Win's hand pointed right at his face, but there was no hint of lethal intent. This time I've won. I didn't expect Win to be this strong. Why didn't you enroll in the Magic Academy Manhwa instead? Wind reached out and helped Alen up. He didn't want to explain much, just said he had his own reasons. Now Alen picked up his sword and started again. He wasn't discouraged by the loss. On the contrary, he was even more excited to train with someone so powerful. Boom. Win. How long are we going to keep doing this? Until you beat me. Alen was thrilled, almost jumping for joy. That feeling of sparring with a skilled opponent is pure bliss. But soon after, the young man's enthusiasm was doused by Win's cold reality check, because after many tries, the result didn't change at all. At this rate, I don't think you can beat me, Alen groaned. Then try attacking me like your life depends on it. Otherwise, this fight will never end. Alen forced a smile. Haha, just kidding, right? Isn't this just training? Why is Wind suddenly telling me to risk my life in a do-or-die battle? Isn't that dangerous? Instead, Wind didn't look like he was joking at all. His eyes were sharp and fierce, sending chills down Alan's spine. I'm serious. This is the method Wind chose for you to awaken your power. First, you have to become stronger than him, then you have to see overwhelming strength to overturn the gap between you two. Alright, I'll attack as if my life depends entirely on this battle, then don't regret it. Fine. If you don't do that, then I'm the one who's really in trouble. Even though Wind was mysterious, Alen knew he meant no harm. So Alen gathered his spirit once more and charged at Wind at top speed. Still, Alen couldn't awaken that quickly, so the outcome of the fight didn't change at all. This made Alen see his friend in a new light. Wind was truly strong, like a completely different person from when they first met. Wind has gotten this powerful, and I'm still stuck in the same place. I'm really pathetic, Alen thought bitterly. A restless night passed, and only when the sun was high did Wind realize they had been fighting all night. Yet Alen still hadn't awakened either his physical or magical power. The power he used in the arena had already reached its limit. Though not awakened, Alen had probably gained quite a bit of strength. We should stop here, Wind sighed. Not yet, even once. I have to defeat you. Yeah, I don't really want to, since it's almost time for the security patrol around the academy. If we get caught, it'll be a huge problem. But Alen was stubborn and wanted to try one last time. His eyes blazed. This time, I'll beat you. Wind sensed the atmosphere around Alen had shifted. Now, his focus was much sharper than before. Could this be the perfect chance for a skill awakening anime moment? You won't know unless you try. All right, then I'll fight with everything I've got. Don't die on me. Alen and Wind summoned the fire dragon, the blazing beast. A giant figure made of blazing fire charged straight at Alen. Facing this terrifying attack, Alen didn't dodge anymore. Even though he was currently losing to Win in every way, his desire to win was stronger than ever. I have to use even more power. Alen gritted his teeth and fiercely countered Win's fire dragon with his water elemental revival. The flames were extinguished. Alen seized the advantage and surged forward. The sword in his hand slashed through the air at a terrifying speed, aiming straight at his opponent. This sudden change threw Wind into a bit of a panic. Alan's awakening was something Wind had always hoped for, but this speed seemed a bit out of control. Damn it, I might actually die if I can't dodge in time. Wind could only watch helplessly as Alan's sword sliced through the air, heading straight for him. But when the blade was just inches from Wind's eyes, it suddenly stopped. Alen threw the sword to the ground and then jumped up joyfully like a child. I did it. Awesome. I beat Win. The kid was so happy, he even cried. Win let out a dry laugh. Damn it. Just because the main character needed to awaken, I almost lost my life. I didn't expect Alan's power to truly explode at the very last moment like this. This feeling of achievement made Win happier than even the moment he was reincarnated. It's surprising to have such great power sleeping inside me. Alen looked at his hands and spoke in disbelief. This scene was exactly like the first time the two joined forces to defeat a monster. Wind was very satisfied. The power Alen just used was to enhance his physical strength, and thanks to this overpowered magic, he became the strongest character in the story. But the biggest problem right now was that Alan's final attack had torn up a patch of earth in the arena. While Win was still figuring out how to handle this mess without getting caught, Alan suddenly showed strange signs. He staggered for a moment. His whole body seemed to lose all strength, then he collapsed onto Win. Are you okay? There was no response. Alan had fallen into a deep coma-like sleep. Wind tried to wake him, but to no avail. It seemed Alan was completely exhausted after that final attack. That was understandable. However, he really did well. No one reaches such immense power in such a short time. Wind patted Alan's head like an old father, comforting his young son. He had trained very hard. After a long while, Alan woke up in bed. Wind was still standing guard beside him. Han was still sound asleep on a nearby bed. Outside, the sky was still bright. Was it still morning? So our battle ended not long ago, right? No, it's already the next morning. You slept the entire day. Alan thought he misheard. No way. He still had things to handle from yesterday afternoon. Everyone would probably be very disappointed. What terrible thing did I do? It's okay. If you apologize sincerely, they'll understand. Wind poured Alan a cup of hot coffee. He also asked what Alan needed to do yesterday afternoon, but Alan hesitated and didn't want to say. With his worldly wise eyes, Wind immediately guessed that the task was probably to teach magic to Princess Selena or something like that. Alan was even more flustered and embarrassed when Wind guessed correctly. How did you know? Wind pondered for a moment. If that's true, then Alan falling asleep and forgetting to meet Selena isn't necessarily a bad thing. If that's the case, Should I go apologize to her too? No, no, Alen waved his hand. What fault does Wind have? The fault is that I fell asleep on my own and shouldn't have. No, I was the one who made you train that day, so part of the fault is mine too. Besides, I also need to meet Princess Selena. I need her cooperation to protect this kingdom. Win didn't explain in detail, but Selena will be closely involved with the upcoming events. If things don't go according to the plan, Win calculated, she might very well die. Alen, upon hearing this, no longer refused. He promised Win that in a few days he would take him to meet Princess Selena. Those few days passed quickly. Alen led Win to a small forest corner within the Magic Academy. The place was lush with greenery, wildflowers blooming everywhere, and the sunlight was beautiful. Beautiful, right? Alen asked, Win excitedly, also revealing that Princess Selena often came here. So that's why you said I need to wait a few days. Alen scratched his head awkwardly. Given his current status, meeting the princess privately was extremely difficult, so they could only come here, hug a tree, and wait for Selena to find them herself. Alen even thought they'd have to wait a long time, but then a beautiful figure caught Win's eye. Princess Selena wore a long dress, her clear eyes incredibly adorable. Just the two of you. Seeing the princess, Alen hurried forward. He stammered out an apology and explained his absence the previous afternoon. Selena's attitude remained very cheerful. What about yesterday? I thought the meeting was today. The apology was quickly settled. Alen immediately introduced Win to the princess as a good friend of his. This was Win's first official audience with Selena in this world. He greeted her very politely, then expressed that he came today because he had important matters to discuss. Important matters, yes. And this concerns the future of the kingdom as well. Wind repeated what he had told Alen before, that this kingdom was about to face a monster attack and might be pushed to the brink of collapse. Selena hesitated. Even though you're Alan's friend, these words sound a bit hard to believe. Then, to earn your trust, I'll tell you things only Princess Selena would know. Actually, you've already suspected, haven't you? You feel the atmosphere around Prime Minister Clark has changed from before, right? Selena was struck by Win's words and couldn't help but trust him. All right then, let's start talking about that. The story of what's about to happen to the kingdom of Celica. The story began with the identity of the Prime Minister, whom Princess Selena had always been wary of. Wind revealed that he was currently a fake Prime Minister. The real one had disappeared, replaced by an impersonating mage. This meant the enemy had infiltrated Celica's political system. Moreover, he held a crucial position because the Prime Minister had countless powers directly affecting the country's safety. For example, Wind proposed a hypothesis: if he sent an army on an expedition, there would be fewer troops in the capital. Then attacking this place would be too easy, impossible to defend. Selena exclaimed in surprise. It's true that the current knights are on an expedition under the Prime Minister's orders. But how do you know this? That expedition was only known to the royal family and Clark's trusted subordinates, so Selena was surprised to see Win knew such information. Yet when faced with her question, he only answered that it was his own secret. However, after a few more words, such a brief conversation, yet Princess Selena's trust in Win reached absolute levels. As for the Prime Minister, where he truly went, remains unknown. Perhaps he is already dead. Hearing this, Selena felt a bit saddened. After all, Clark was also a Prime Minister who always fulfilled his duties well. However, she quickly regained her composure. The most important thing now is what they need to do immediately to prevent even worse outcomes. This reaction pleased Win greatly. Under his pen, Selena is a strong-willed girl with boundless love for the kingdom. Now that he had met the real person, she was exactly as described. After meeting her, Win's determination grew stronger. At all costs, he would save Selena's life. If that's the case, I will explain the plan to resolve everything from now on. We will save the Celica kingdom together. Let's go. The three-person team with hearts loyal to the kingdom was thus formed. Win's plan began with an uprising. To make that happen, he went to a hidden alley in the capital, then summoned Jin. Win ordered Jin to destroy buildings within the nearby radius without harming anyone. Because saving people was difficult, but causing destruction didn't take much effort. Jin immediately flew off upon receiving the order. When flying over a crowded town square, Jin stopped high above, then used magic to create a massive tremor, mainly to intimidate. As expected, the people were terrified. They all fled within a minute. The once crowded square was now empty. With the area cleared, Jin no longer hesitated. Magic surged forth, destroying every corner of the square. This scene made Win extremely satisfied. That's right, Jin, keep doing the same in other places. Understood. Jin continued similar actions in surrounding areas of the capital. Meanwhile, Win hid carefully. Because if he was discovered, this uprising would become utterly meaningless. Wherever Jin passed, the scenery immediately turned to ruin. However, one unexpected event occurred. A child couldn't escape in time, and saw rocks about to crush them. Jin had no choice but to shield the child with his own body. As a result, a large wound appeared on Jin's shoulder, continuously bleeding. Shortly after, a group of low-level mages appeared. They joined forces to stop the beast's fury. Magic missiles flew like rockets toward Jin, but a simple wind wall blocked them all. What the hell is that? The mages were shocked. The level gap between us is just too big. Let's go. However, before they could devise another strategy, Jin vanished in a flash of light. Win, hiding in a corner, witnessed the entire scene. This time Jin performed very well. Thanks to that, Win was able to create such a successful and perfect uprising. Now it was time to execute the next step of the plan. A report about the terrifyingly powerful beast that destroyed over 100 structures in the capital was quickly submitted to the king. Although there were no casualties, this was a wake-up call about the city's lax security. King Celica pondered for a moment. He believed the best solution now was to summon the knights currently on the expedition to quickly return and defend the capital. I don't think that's a good idea. The fake Prime Minister CL quickly dismissed this opinion. He gave the reason that if the knights were called back in the middle of the expedition without any results, it would hurt their pride and make them angry. That was indeed true, but I had a very bad feeling about it. The Prime Minister hurriedly reassured the king. He thought that instead of rushing to summon the knights back, they should start by finding out how that monster got into the capital. After hearing this, the king found it reasonable. He was about to agree with Clar's opinion. Wait, just then, Princess Selena pushed open the door and entered the Great Hall with a very determined look. I already know who brought the monster into the city. The king's eyebrows furrowed tightly. Before he could speak, Selena quickly continued, and I am an accomplice. As soon as she said this, everyone in the hall immediately erupted. What are you saying? Are you all right, Selena? The fake prime minister's face also changed. He raised his voice to interrogate Selena, pointing his accusations directly at her. But the princess said she had personal reasons and wanted to summon the person who caused the riot to the palace to clarify everything. Although the king didn't understand what was going on, he agreed to his daughter's request, so Win and Alen were quickly summoned. The kingdom's heirs, the two teenagers, stepped into the Great Hall. Prime Minister Clar immediately recognized Win's identity as the son of the Campbell family. Ah, I thought you had disappeared. Yes, I've been honing my power to use in moments like this. Win's eyes suddenly sharpened, seeing through the true identity of the fake Prime Minister. This statement was even more shocking than the princess's earlier words. Immediately after, a knight drew his sword and lunged, pressing it against Win's neck. What you just said is clearly an insult. However, Win showed no fear at all. The pressure from his gaze even scared the knight, making him hesitate to act recklessly. Selena is also an accomplice with you two. Let's hear what he has to say first. The king's words had to be obeyed. The knight reluctantly sheathed his sword, but the fake Clar was far from pleased. He threatened that he would never forgive Wind for insulting him by calling him an imposter. Based on what you're about to say, I might just have you executed, Clar said, without changing his expression. I don't care. Wind smiled confidently, but Princess Selena began to worry. Seriously, that Clar guy doesn't seem like he's just bluffing. Will Wind really be okay? First, I'll show everyone the proof that I'm the one behind the recent riot. Wind snapped his fingers. The spirit Jane was immediately summoned. The knights in the hall quickly confirmed that this was the monster responsible for the attack. After confirming that Wind was the culprit, the king asked, Why? Why did you cause this? Wind answered frankly, I did it to get a chance to meet the king directly and expose the fake prime minister's identity. Although I don't understand what you're trying to explain. You just admitted that you attacked the capital, right? Yes, I admit it. Win reaffirmed. It was a difficult decision, but only by doing this could I expose the fake prime minister who is planning to destroy the kingdom. Clar had lost all patience by now. Wind obviously didn't come unprepared. Thanks to his abilities, he raised his hand and cast a magic dispel spell on the prime minister. Then the hazy white smoke dissipated, revealing the prime minister's true form. It was completely different from the prime minister everyone knew. The entire throne room plunged into chaos. Even the king gaped in shock at the prime minister's changed appearance. For a moment he asked, How do you know that magic? The imposter challenged Wind. You find it strange too, right? There's no way I wouldn't recognize that mysterious magic discovered by LMAA, and you know it that well. Could you be a former member? Of course not. After revealing his true identity, the imposter stopped pretending. Facing the king, he bluntly declared his goal to annihilate the royal family and let LX Ma take control of the kingdom. However, Wind saw through his intentions immediately. That guy planned to kill everyone present in the throne room today. "Seize him." All the knights in the hall obeyed the king's command and charged forward. But that LX Ma wasn't an ordinary opponent. He soared into the air, spinning once mid-flight. The magic he just used was called the Dance of Death. After being hit, all the knights lost their strength and collapsed. This was the moment for our two protagonists to step in. Alen and Wind gripped their swords tightly, blocking the evil mage trying to escape. "If I finish off you kids, there'll be nothing left to stop me, right?" Wind chuckled darkly. "There's no way your plan will beat my story," the imposter said, not understanding Wind's meaning. But that didn't really matter. "Let me reveal one more thing before we fight. You're going to be defeated by the two of us." The imposter laughed out loud at that. After all, standing before him were just two fresh-faced teenagers. "You really think you can beat me with just the two of you? What a joke. Who do you think I am?" After this typical rhetorical question, he usually fakes his status, and this time was no different. The imposter revealed he was the leader of an assassin squad from the powerful magic kingdom of Anmaka. Anmaka's assassin squad. Does that really exist? I've never even heard of Anmaka. But seeing the king's face turn pale, this guy clearly wasn't a joke. Enough with the youthful chatter. "Now, let's start the fight, shall we?" The imposter followed the rule that the first to strike is the strongest. So, he used the Dance of Death magic again, targeting the two teenagers. Wind gripped his magic sword tightly. A blazing flame incinerated all the imposter's attacks. "Not bad. Your last attack was pretty mediocre though." Wind's cockiness infuriated his opponent. He decided to unleash a more dangerous move he called the Dark Night Bell. The entire throne room was engulfed in darkness. The king grew extremely anxious, while the imposter laughed triumphantly, believing victory was assured. Wind had blocked his Dance of Death. This made the imposter think, "You're not weak at all." So he trapped the entire throne room inside an invisible bell. In the overwhelming darkness, he was the only one who could see clearly. With this control, he aimed to strike Princess Selena first. But just as his blade rose, a dazzling beam of magic light blasted Alen like a divine intervention from the heavens. He delivered a powerful kick. The strike was so strong it sent the imposter crashing straight into the brick wall, shaking the entire room into chaos. He also emerged from the shadows at that moment. "How can you see me indeed? Even if you can see me, how can you even land a hit?" He was utterly confused. After all, he was a character he created himself. How could Win not know every move he would make? The young man maintained his arrogant stance, not forgetting to sneer a few taunts at his opponent, making him feel deeply humiliated. This was the first time someone dared to make a fool out of him and insult him so openly. "I will not forgive you. I will kill you all with every ounce of my power." The imposter unleashed a massive surge of mana with terrifying force. On the opposite side, Alen also entered an awakened state, channeling an enormous amount of energy. The battle was fairly balanced, making it hard to say who was stronger. However, the magic the imposter used was one of Enmaka's forbidden ultimate techniques. He couldn't believe that a greenhorn like Alen or Win could control this kind of power. The power was formidable, no doubt, but I can defeat him. Alen gritted his teeth. He gradually felt the strength surging through his body, similar to that morning when he was able to take down Win. Then the imposter condensed all his power into a massive fireball. Alen poured all his strength into repelling it. The result was the imposter's fireball being blasted away, dragging down part of the palace ceiling and creating utter chaos. He was a bit panicked, realizing he couldn't even harm his opponent by a single hair. "You've lost. Surrender now." The imposter finally realized his strength was far inferior to the young man's, but a villain like him would never surrender so easily. Unable to win, he turned sharply, leapt out the window without any magical technique. Unexpectedly, Win had planned ahead. Han had been lying in wait outside the palace for a long time. The moment the evil mage tried to escape her magic knocked him back into the main hall. The imposter collapsed on the floor. His energy was drained, unable to flee or fight back anymore. "Now you've been completely defeated by us." After sealing the battle, Han cheerfully jumped into the main hall to join everyone. She laughed gleefully, growing more devoted to Win every day, because his plan had no loopholes at all. The villain lay flat on the ground, shooting a bullet-like glare at Win. He was so close to achieving his goal, yet everything was shattered by this young man. He couldn't bear to accept such a humiliating defeat. A final scheme formed in his mind, but before he could move his hand, Win grabbed it firmly. "You think I'd let you use that?" Win snatched a bell from his hand. This was the beast summoning bell from the original story. It was the key factor in the castle's downfall. Once blown, all the beasts in the area would gather and obey the whistleblower's command. Even with the current powers of him and Alen, they could stop the beasts if they appeared. But to avoid any trouble, Win crushed it outright. It was all over now. A proud smile spread across the young man's face. We did it. Win and Alen were so happy they nearly jumped for joy. You truly are the hero who saved the entire kingdom. Win continued with a fatherly, pitying gaze. The girl looked at Alen and said, What's up, Alen? You're supposed to be the new hero, right? Without you, how could we have defeated him? It's because you were here with us that this kingdom was saved. Alen felt a bit embarrassed hearing such long praise from a guy for the first time. The two kept complimenting each other non-stop, making Selena unable to stand it any longer. You two are really humble. Both of you are heroes whose contributions even King Celica cannot deny. This time, the king calmly stood up, then bowed his head in gratitude, because Wind and Alen had saved the kingdom. All the officials, royal relatives, and knights present in the Great Hall also bowed down in respect as a sign of thanks. The commotion ended, the fake prime minister was subdued, Wind successfully prevented danger to the kingdom, as well as Princess Selena's death. However, there was still one thing he had to confirm whether he could truly change this world. Because in the original story, countless endless battles still occurred, and misfortunes kept falling on the characters. That was something Wind no longer wanted to happen after his author reincarnation. In fact, the way to change those events was quite simple. He had to become stronger, surpass Alen, and become the true male lead of this world. Wind could definitely do that based on his knowledge from the original story, and perhaps his destiny for transmigrating into this novel was to prevent the suffering from happening to the characters. Lord Wind. So you're here. Han's voice pulled Wind out of his wandering thoughts. She was extremely excited, because after the recent event, they were generously rewarded. Reward? Why didn't I get mine? Wind answered immediately without hesitation. Han was puzzled and upset, but Wind didn't bother explaining. He simply didn't want to rest on his laurels. This small achievement wasn't worthy of a reward yet, so instead of taking it, Wind sent it straight to the Campbell family as an apology for leaving the family without permission. Then, he and Han continued their journey. On the way, they encountered the mage hired by the Campbell patriarch to bring Wind home. But he no longer bothered to chase after him. From the story, Wind learned he had been expelled from the family. Oh, that's really a shame. It sure is. Who told you not to listen to your father? The man laughed mockingly. No, I meant, it's a shame for the Campbell family. Before the man could understand what Wind meant, calls came from behind. It seemed the royal knights had discovered Wind sneaking out and hurried to chase after him. With no choice, Wind hugged Han, used his jump skill to continue fleeing. The knights were blocked by the hired mage. He was curious what crime Wind had committed to be hunted by the entire royal court. What crime? He's the one who saved this entire kingdom. It's rare for someone to achieve such a feat and be honored as a young hero like that. The Campbell family must be very proud of him. The man thought he misheard. Now he understood why, before leaving. Wind said honestly, it's a shame for the Campbell family to have expelled me. Wind's next destination was the Maze City along the way, where Han noticed many mages very different from those in the Celica Kingdom's capital. Wind explained, the difference was because Phasia was built over numerous underground dungeons, and the abundant magical resources from those dungeons attracted many mages to gather there. This is exactly why Wind came here. This place, after all the dungeons in Phasia are among the largest in the world. Wanting to stay here long-term, Wai decided to buy a house. But since he wanted it cheap and spacious, he chose the most dilapidated house possible. So run down that it barely fit 2 people. The door handle was holding up the entire door, which had collapsed. Inside was even more ruined than the outside looked. Wind covered his nose with a handkerchief. Looks like some magic is needed to renovate this place. We drew a magic circle on the floor, then used time magic to restore the house to its condition when it was first built, in just moments. The brick walls and rotten wooden floor gradually returned to their original form. Han gaped in amazement. Incredible. By the time the magic was complete, Wai was exhausted and collapsed on the floor. Time magic consumes a lot of energy. Now the house was like new, but his mana was depleted. Even though the house looked new, the dust was still there. Han took care of the rest. Of course, Han didn't refuse such an important task. Hey girl, one hand holding a broom, the other a bucket. She was even more enthusiastic about cleaning than fighting monsters. A long night passed. Wind woke up in bed. Han was still sound asleep beside him. It seemed she had struggled a lot to carry him from the floor to the bed. Wind stretched, then got out of bed to check the house's condition. Han did better than he expected. She cleaned so thoroughly that not a speck of dust remained in the entire large house. Now it really felt like a place to live. Wai's main goal in coming here was to gather resources from the dungeons, including monster parts, ores, herbs, and so on. Based on the knowledge he possessed, Wai could craft powerful items from those materials, and thanks to those he would be strong enough to surpass even Alen. Sir Win, you're awake. Han woke up messy-haired from the bed. Wind greeted good morning. She didn't forget to praise the house being cleaned. Han was so happy she smiled, with her eyes crinkled. Sorry for rushing you so early, but we need to go out now. Han jumped off the bed, instantly alert. Where are we going? When it comes to dungeons, there's only one place to go, right? The Adventurers Guild. Wind went to the Adventurers Guild and registered as a member. The process was quite simple. Then the receptionist gave him an ID card and introduced Wind to the training course for new adventurers. Han was more excited than ever hearing about this training, because her knowledge about this world and adventurers was still very limited. But unexpectedly, Wind flat out refused, which was understandable. Since Wind's knowledge was enough to create a whole bunch of training guides, joining would just waste time, right? So Seeing Han lose interest, Wind couldn't help but ask a few questions. She honestly replied, I just don't know anything about adventurers. These two worlds, so I think I should join that training course. Don't worry, Han experience is the best teacher. Encouraged by Win, Han immediately brightened up. So what should we do next, now that we're here? Wind had many things he wanted to do, but the first priority was to climb the ranks. Upon joining the guild, Wind's rank would be, the higher the rank, the more privileges. He wanted to level up. The sooner the better for ranking up. Thinking back, Dominic on that sailing ship was a B-rank adventurer, right? If that's the case, Sir Win could easily climb the ranks. Leveling up for Win is obviously no big deal. But what he really wants is to bring Han along to become a ranked adventurer too, even though Han isn't fully confident in her abilities yet. Yet, with Win's keen insight into the world, he knows she's totally capable of making it. The sound of a quarrel from afar caught both their attention. It seems there's a dispute happening nearby. Win knows that arguing, even fighting, isn't uncommon at the Adventurers Guild, but with his nosy nature, he and Han stayed to eavesdrop on what was going down. Why did you sell the siege cannon materials? You said they'd belong to me. Because the siege cannon is considered the most valuable among the monsters I've defeated. I already gave you compensation. Then what's left to be unsatisfied about? You don't understand. Without my knowledge, how could you have defeated the siege cannon? It should rightfully be mine. The argument was between a beautiful red-haired woman and a scar-faced guy with a buzz cut. They seemed to have teamed up to hunt monsters, and were now disputing over loot. Win glanced over and recognized the redhead as the maze's head chef. Lucky break. Didn't expect to run into her here. The quarrel wasn't ending. The scar-faced guy wanted to throw in some extra money to shut her up. But she insisted on having the siege cannon monster. The guy had already sold it though, so there was no way around it. You're such a pain. If you don't like the team's decision, then get lost. The chef was frustrated, but refused to back down. You sold my monster, and now you're kicking me off the team. Fine by me. I don't need to team up with anyone anyway, the chef declared before storming off angrily. That person's way too aggressive, Han honestly commented. Let's go after her. Han thought she misheard and wanted to double-check, but Win confirmed the person they needed to chase was the angry girl who just left. They found the chef passed out drunk at a tavern. Win approached to start a conversation, but she wasn't very interested in talking to him. Then, I'll talk myself, Win said, sitting down next to her, and began to ramble on. Unlike animals, monsters have magical crystals inside their bodies. Their bodies are designed to contain magic, and for humans, the magic-infused flesh is actually poison. The chef impatiently interrupted Win, because what he was saying was basic knowledge every adventurer should know. Why say all that? You know how to extract magic from monster meat, right? At this, her expression changed. Indeed, once the magic is separated, the poison disappears, and the magic preserves the freshness to the max, making monster meat a luxury cooking ingredient on par with umami. Win had successfully caught her attention. In her drunken state, she began to open up about what she knew. In the original story, the next 3 years would be when the chef meets Alen. The dishes she prepares have special effects that boost adventurers' physical damage. So, if she could be turned into Win's disciple now, it's certain that Win would become stronger. With some added national liquors, their conversation became much livelier. La Xmi tells the story of how she removes magic from monster hunting. Wind listens very attentively, but his expression is one that makes La take notice. His expression looks like he already knows about those things, right? That's exactly the case. But even though I know I can't perform that technique without experience, dealing with countless monsters, and a special ability to sense magic, it's practically impossible. If you listen closely, this statement is actually praising La's talent. This girl also loves flattery. As soon as she hears it, her mood brightens considerably. Riding the momentum, Wind spins a story that a few years ago, when La's master was on the brink of death, he met Wind and gave him a piece of monster meat. This dish helped Wind restore his power and escape death. He also told me the name of the person training under him, La. Hearing this, La's spirits lift. She didn't expect her master to always remember her like that. Wind knows lying isn't good, but if that story can restore an alliance with La, then it's absolutely worth it. So, Wind straightforwardly raises the issue that he wants to eat that monster meat dish once more. Moreover, it has to be a dish made by La herself. All the monster meat ingredients will belong to her. So, does she want to join the team and enter the dungeon with us? It's rare to find someone who values your talent and has the insight like Wind. Naturally, La won't refuse. They reach an agreement so fast it's dizzying. Han is once again impressed by Wind's talent for persuasion. He didn't expect La, who was annoyed and gloomy just minutes ago, to open up like this now. After finalizing the formation of their three-person team, they continue drinking. Wind and Han tell La many things so she can understand them better. By the way, what brought you two here? Is it because of the treasure in the tomb? Faced with La's curiosity, Wind doesn't hesitate to admit he has many reasons for coming here. But the biggest reason is to become stronger. La lets out an excited, "Oh, then you must know about the effects of eating monster meat, right?" Of course, Wind's straightforwardness only excites La more. She promises to give her all so that he and Han can become as strong as possible. With this promise from her, Wind feels like his plan is almost completely successful. The next day, when La plans to enter the dungeon, they discover something unbelievable. That both Wind and Han are still novice adventurers, while only ranked adventurers are qualified to enter the dungeon. Although Wind assures they will level up soon, La still has some doubts. Did I choose the wrong people to form the team? Oh, isn't that La? A mocking voice rings out. La turns around, cursing silently. Isn't that the scar-faced old man who secretly sold her monster meat yesterday? And he's accompanied by two lackeys who love to poke at others. Her dungeon trip. So, didn't someone say yesterday they didn't want to team up with anyone anymore? Shut up, La loses patience. Running into these guys early in the morning is a bad omen for today. The scar-faced man shifts his gaze from La to Wind. When he learns that her new teammate is a ranked adventurer, he bursts out laughing. Oh my god. Just because you can't stay in this city anymore, you have to team up with those clueless ranked adventurers. La's anger flares up fiercely. Just angry at myself for not being able to instantly wipe out these 2 or 3 damn bastards into ghosts. The N-Wind group seemed unusually calm, as the 4 others were about to burst into an argument. You made an unexpected proposal among the adventurers, with a formal one-on-one duel system, and Wind wanted to use it to determine who among them was truly stronger. Hey Win, the others had never witnessed Win's abilities before, so hearing that made them very worried. The 3 bastards found it both ridiculous and irritating. After all, they were all rank C adventurers, which is 3 tiers higher, yet you dared to challenge them to a duel to compare strength. But Win didn't sound like he was joking at all. Fine then. Let's have a fight, and settle this. Seeing the scar-faced guy take the bait, Win smiled with satisfaction. He would defeat all 3, and instantly raise his status. One-on-one duels among adventurers are also known as blood duels. Adventurers who agree to participate must wager their own honor, as this is a popular form of entertainment among the public. The battle between Win and that trickster was no exception. It attracted a large crowd. If you lose that, Fairy will belong to me. He hadn't even stated the conditions yet. Han was so scared she was crying and sniffling. Who would want to fall into the hands of those bitches as a slave? On the contrary, Wind agreed cheerfully. He made a counter-demand. If they lost, they must voluntarily forfeit their adventurer status. Meanwhile, Win and Han would be promoted to rank C. Win, are you sure about this? Kala was very worried. Although they had just met, she couldn't stand by and watch those bastards take Han away. Don't worry, we won't lose. Kala didn't know where this rank E teen got such confidence. Even though they were pretty rotten, they were still rank C adventurers after all. Han, can you imagine me losing? Unimaginable, Han answered without hesitation. Seeing Han being wagered as the prize in the duel, yet still confident, Kala began to doubt whether this kid was really that strong. I still have a long way to go, so don't worry. Those lackeys are nothing. Wind. He was even too lazy to finish off the opponents and ordered Han to step up and fight. The girl had always lacked confidence in her own abilities, so facing the enemy she couldn't help but tremble with fear. Kala grew even more worried. After all, it's a blood duel, can't you be more careful? But Win's gaze remained extremely determined from start to finish. He always placed great trust in Han. This time was no different. He believed she could win. This absolute trust was like a sedative for Han. She immediately regained her spirit. Her legs no longer shook uncontrollably. Understood. If Lord Wind trusts me like this, I will do my best. Facing the opponent, Han looked very small and timid. The audience in the stands unanimously believed the rank C mage would win. Han took a deep breath. Wind had told her to seize the initiative, so as soon as the match started, Han cast a magic spell to launch a cannonball attack straight at the opponent. Unexpectedly, with just this one strike, the guy was knocked, flying backward. More dramatically, his impact shattered several bricks in the stands. The spectators all gaped in shock. This was also the expression on the faces of the other two. Even Ka-La was stunned. She never thought such a tiny, shy little fairy girl could have such overwhelming power. Now, the Lost finally understand why Wind is so confident. Now bring up the next person. Wind taunts. Unexpectedly, the opponent is even more cowardly than anticipated. Then, when the first guy failed miserably, they quickly surrendered. The bloody battle ended swiftly. Han still couldn't believe she had defeated a mage ranked C. She won. Well done, Han. Wind, as usual, didn't hold back on praising the amazing girl. Seriously, way too strong. The Lost chimed in agreement. Han beamed like a farmer after a good harvest, her confidence growing a bit more. The other two carried their injured teammates limping away. Now, Win and Han have both been promoted to rank C. They're qualified to enter the dungeon. Wind silently calculated in his mind. With their current strength, they could reach the mid-level dungeon without any obstacles on the path to obtaining hidden items. They had taken a huge step forward. In the place known as the world's largest underground dungeon complex, the dungeons are divided into a total of 100 floors, featuring various terrains, like grasslands, dense forests, underwater zones, and volcanic areas. Every 10 floors, the terrain changes to a different type, and in the original story, the farthest adventurer ever reached was floor 73. When Han and the Lost entered a grassland-type dungeon, Han shivered, because even though they were underground, this dungeon still had an open sky. After all, these are sophisticated dungeons created by ancient civilization technology, which is why hidden items are stored here. The Lost had heard of these so-called hidden items, but no one had ever found them before. Win revealed that to find hidden items, there's one condition: they must pass through the dungeon without defeating any monsters inside. The Lost were curious why, but Wind was too lazy to explain. He just asked if she was familiar with using wind speed magic yet. This magic lets the user run as fast as the wind, though it consumes quite a bit of energy. I'm already used to it. Good, then let's use it to rush through here. The three activated wind speed magic together, but in the blink of an eye, the Lost were left far behind. The terrifying speed of Win and Han. You have to be as fast as the wind too. Clearly it was like lightning fast. Hey, wait a minute, the Lost called out from behind. At this moment, Wind realized the Lost's abilities were still lacking, so she couldn't keep up. It's understandable for the two of them. Sorry. Han and I have practiced magic, so our speed is a bit faster. Green Bean left everyone half a world behind and calls it just a bit. The Lost were furious. If those two leave me behind again, I'll really be mad. Before continuing, Wind also taught the Lost how to conserve energy when using magic for long periods. This made Han silently annoyed. Notice Lord Win is teaching someone else too, so now I'm ahead of her, huh? Suddenly feeling a little happy inside, Wind couldn't guess what the girl was thinking. He didn't bother to ask. The three quickly passed through the grassland area and reached the dense forest. The Lost's speed had improved a lot. When Wind saw a swarm of blue butterflies, he immediately signaled everyone to stop. The Lost collapsed, exhausted, onto the grass. After running so long, finally a little rest. Wind's gaze focused on the blue butterflies, more precisely on the flowers attracting them. You picked a flower. This is the fiery flower, whose scent is the reason it attracts butterflies. Because it has soothing properties, it's a perfect ingredient for making perfume. Wind casually picked a big bunch of fiery flowers. And when Kala heard the words perfume, she thought she misheard. Perfume? What are you, a maiden or something? Wind didn't rush to explain, since this stuff would be useful sooner or later. He pulled out his inventory bag to stash the freshly picked flowers. Kala was stunned once again. Inventory bags aren't something every adventurer has. How did these two get theirs? I made mine myself. Wind honestly admitted that. Now, Kala understood why Han trusted and was unconditionally loyal to Wind during the blood battle. This guy really is good at everything. Wind put the fiery flowers away and signaled the other two to keep moving with him. Kala complained that the break was too short and she still wasn't fully rested, so Wind didn't push her. He let the two rest while he went off scouting around. After resting, the three of them continued crossing the rest of the dense forest. Along the way, they didn't encounter a single monster. Very quickly, they reached the entrance to the dungeon's 20th floor. Wind stopped in front of a massive ancient tree. This was why they hadn't been allowed to defeat any monsters from the start to be able to reach the top of this tree. Lord Wind, what's up there on top of this tree? A sky temple. Ha ha ha. Kala laughed dryly. There's no way something like that exists, right? Han regretted that this time their alliance had failed because Han always trusted Wind without question. If Wind said so, then she believed there really was a temple at the top of this tree. Kala thought these two were crazy. Even if it existed, she tilted her head back to look. The tree was so huge, she couldn't even see the top. How the hell are we supposed to get up there? Simple. Wind snapped his fingers. And a Jane spirit long unseen appeared again. With Jane flying up to the sky, temple was no longer difficult. Kala lost count of how many times she'd been left speechless since meeting Wind. Summoning and riding a spirit king like this was just normal. A teenager, huh? The three climbed onto Jane's back. As they flew, they encountered a winged shark. This creature was originally a monster from the jungle. Its presence here was definitely to block adventurers from reaching the temple. Wind ordered Jane to speed up and ignored it, no attacking the anomaly. The shark attacked first, snapping its mouth full of sharp teeth, trying to swallow all three of them in one bite. But Jane skillfully dodged the monster. Then Jane sped away, leaving it behind below. Very quickly the top of the tree appeared before them. The Sky Temple really did exist. Both Han and Kala were overwhelmed by the mysterious grandeur of the place. It was a groundbreaking discovery. But Kala wondered how Wind even knew about this place. It's nothing, I just have a bit more knowledge than everyone else. That explanation wasn't very convincing. But Kala couldn't force Wind to reveal the truth. She stopped pressing, and Wind seemed pleased with that. The three of them walked shoulder to shoulder into the temple. Inside was a vast garden full of flowers. Wind stepped carefully, touching the wall. "What are you doing? I'm looking for a secret chamber." As soon as he said that, Wind touched an empty brick and used magic on it. The solid wall instantly shifted to reveal a hidden door. By this moment, the Law group had really started to get used to Wind's unexpected tricks. Behind the secret door was a small room. "What is this place? It looks like a workshop." The Law members curiously looked around. "That's right. This will be where we make perfume." Turns out Wind's earlier flower gathering was for this very moment. The Law still didn't understand why he was making perfume. They just knew it was something we needed. Usually perfume production takes quite a bit of time, about a month or more. But if you infuse it with magic, that time can be cut down to just 1 hour. Coincidentally, the one thing Wind isn't short on right now is magic. He used it to extract the essence from 5 flowers, then added some ethanol to preserve and extend its shelf life. Finally, he added a bit of purified water to dilute the alcohol concentration. And just like that, Wind had a complete bottle of perfume. Isn't this a bit too flashy? There's even a bunch of tools here that he didn't bother to use. If he had, it would have taken a whole month. I'm not a billionaire with unlimited time. The 5 perfume is already in my hands. It's one of the keys that will let Wind soon seize the hidden item inside this dungeon.